Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the Creative Leadership Podcast, brought to you by Blue Sky Republic, from the Blue Sky Republic. My name is Arne van Oostrom, and today we're going to dive into the world of AI. I have the pleasure of introducing you to Ingrid Geeraedts. She lives in Sweden. She has a Dutch name, but she's a lot of things. She speaks a lot of languages, including music and AI. And we're going to look at both stories, the music one and the AI one. I'm not really sure which story I preferred. I love music. Music is such an important part of my life. But the AI story is obviously really very intriguing, and it has something to do with the fact that we don't really know what AI is or what AI is going to be. AI, something I understood from our conversation is that there is no real general understanding of what AI actually is. There's no general kind of accepted definition of what AI is, and that is intriguing because I would kind of think, there's a definition of it, but actually, if you think about it, it becomes quite philosophical, especially if you start kind of, digging a little deeper into, what intelligence really is and what artificial really is and what artificial intelligence really is and how we keep control over machines that build machines and software that creates software, and how this is influencing our lives and our societies and the way we create businesses and, the way we actually program technology with all our biases. It's going to, I don't know, it's going to be something that we might not want to have. And are we building a friend or an enemy? I don't know. Big questions. So enjoy the conversation.
I am a colorful person, I would say, both that I wear colorful dresses and that I'm an outgoing person. I'm in a band, so I make some music on my free time, only for fun. I'm not aiming to be the next Beyonce. It's really just a creative outlet, I would say. And then I've traveled quite a lot, and I really enjoy learning new languages and meeting new people. And one of the things when I meet someone from another country, I always try to learn some word or sentence in their language to be able to make this kind of connection, learn something new, and show interest in the other person.
I too play in a band, which is interesting. So my interest goes straight to band. Yes. That's interesting. For fun, what do you play?
I sing.
Oh, you sing. Okay, you will be the next Beyonce. Okay.
No.
I will not ask you to sing on the podcast, although it is tempting. No worries. So what kind of music?
Well, we do a little bit of like country, soul, blues kind of thing, and I'm the youngest one in the band. The oldest person is retired, so he's 60 something, and then the other two are 50 something. So it's quite a big range of ages. It's just a group of people that like to make music. And I met them when I was in high school, and I studied social sciences and music. And it was one of my friend's dads knew the drummer in the band. And they asked if I wanted to be like a guest artist on one of their performances. So we practiced Nina Simone's I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free, cool. Which also just singing a Nina Simone song is difficult. She is an absolute icon. But we gave it a try, and it was the first time that I sang for an audience that had actually paid tickets to be there. And I was so nervous. And I had practiced the lyrics, so I knew the lyrics. And then as soon as we did the sound check and I was standing in front of the microphone, I completely forgot every single word. Like there was nothing. I just went blank. So I ran into the back room. I stood in front of the mirror. I sang the whole song. I knew the lyrics. I went back in front of the microphone. I didn't know it. So like we had to do some kind of quick fix and get like a stand to put the lyrics on so I could look at the lyrics while singing. And it was also like a surprise that I was going to sing in the concert. So they kind of started playing the song and then they were like, oh, we have a special surprise in the audience. So I stood up and I walked to the stage and started singing. And I don't remember, I know that I sang, but I don't remember it because I was just so nervous. And then in the end, when I stopped singing, I kind of came back like this. And I realized that I had survived and people were applauding. And I was like, they will never want to do this with me again because I was such an emotional wreck. But apparently they thought it was nice that I was a sensitive person and that I could convey feelings while singing, even though I don't even remember it because I was so nervous. And that's where it started. And then we continued making music.
That's very so. Now I have this image of my head that someone comes on stage, then goes totally blank, runs out back into or behind like into the dressing room, comes back. I know, I still don't know it. So, like the audience may feel like
it was during the sound check, so there was no audience when I.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh my goodness, that would have been so bad.
Oh, I thought I would have been with the audience. I thought that'd be interesting. Yeah. Like, where's that person going?
No, I think I went into some kind of survival mode when the audience was actually there. So then at least I was able to do it, even though I don't remember to do it.
It's kind of weird that you don't remember. That's because usually those are the moments you will remember the most. So like that's so wow, that's awesome. But you've beyond. I mean, after that you played after again and again. Yeah. So you did more shows, right?
Yes. So I definitely feel less nervous now, and a new experience that I've had recently is usually or earlier the drummer of our band Putte, he would always. He would do like the talks in between songs. I don't know if there's a word for it, but you talk a little bit about the song, a little bit about the band when they're switching guitars and everything. And recently we decided that me and the other girl who's singing in the band, Ylva, that we were gonna do the talks in between. And I think we were both quite nervous for it, but I wanted to do it like spontaneously. I would just want like to see maybe we'll come up with something to say in the moment. And but Ylva was like, no, we have to kind of like make a script. Mm-hmm. So then we had to combine our ways of preparing, or my way of not preparing and her way of preparing. So we kind of met like in between and made like a short list of these are things we could say. And so now the last two gigs, I've been talking, and the first time I did it in the beginning I was super nervous, and then like at least in the middle of the show I was feeling like someone should take this microphone from me because I'm talking too much.
Stop me.
Yes, stop me. But then, now I know I'm capable of that as well.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're really enjoying it, which I totally understand. I think it's an amazing experience to be on a stage and directly, have an audience right there in front of you that you can see that what you do, the effect of what you're doing, right? Whether it's right or wrong, but that's the exciting part of it, right? It could just like they might not like it, or they might like it, or like so. That's that feeling is amazing. Because it's so direct. There's no hiding unless you run back into the dressing room, maybe.
Right.
But even then, there's really no hiding. You're right there, and everybody's watching you. Like, all right, so so you're on stage.
Exactly. And when I think you don't, as an audience, you don't really think about your facial expression. Like you just listen,
Yeah.
And then sometimes it can look like you're really like bored, or there's no like no, not a lot of emotion in your face. So the first times I sang for an audience, I was like, everyone is so bored and everyone like hates it because
Yeah.
like I can't read what they're thinking. And
Yeah.
but then after a while I realized, oh, that yeah, and I started thinking, well, how do I look when I listen to music, when I sit in the audience?
Yeah, true.
Well, you
That's,
probably I just take it in
yeah.
without thinking.
Yeah, you're not like, you're not sitting like
Yeah, exactly. With your hands up and a big smile all the time.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No, you're not usually doing that unless, you're a teenage girl
yeah.
and you're, with, I don't know, Justin Bieber or something concert, then
Right,
I
exactly. Yeah,
think he will know that they like, but they don't really care about what he's saying or the music. They're just shouting. This to
yeah,
me, it's like.
exactly. Yeah,
However, I think it must be like at least if I kind of reflect on it myself, it's an addictive kind of experience because there's nothing usually out there that kind of is like that exhilarating as that,
yeah,
and exactly that kind of directness and that being able to kind of understanding the connection between what you do and the audience and the excitement of it,
mm,
because it's so direct. I mean, I
hmm,
can imagine. I used to do stand-up comedy, or in Dutch it's called cabaret.
hmm.
I used to do that, yeah, a long time ago, before YouTube and Facebook. So
Okay, it's
there's
not
no,
online.
yes, which is great, awesome. Yeah, that because I don't know, I don't think we were really good, but this idea of I really also had to learn that if you're like trying to be funny
Mm,
and people don't, I mean, there's different ways of liking or laughing. You don't always
yeah,
laugh out loud. You can also laugh in sort of inside. You can,
yeah, or
but
like a giggle.
yeah, like yeah, it's not that they don't like it if they're not laughing out. There's a difference. Obviously, you like them to laugh out loud because that's an
Mm,
evidence that they like it. But if
mm,
they're not, you're like, what's going on?
yeah.
And that's
Am I
really
boring?
surprising. Yeah, am I boring? Like, and then we're like, oh God, and getting nervous. But this idea of the directness of it, I
Mm,
think that's addictive.
mm,
But I want to go back a little bit to know where it all started, really. I mean,
hmm.
now it's like we're having an interview with a well-known artist. And who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Maybe in the future. But in hindsight, this might become one of those. But that's a. But I want to go back a little bit to the beginning because there's you have an interesting history, even as a child, really, and you talked
Mm.
about travel, and so just could take. Can you take us a little bit to sort of the beginning of where it all has started? Uh, where were you born? Where are you from? Who are your
Yeah.
father? Who's your mother?
If we would make a timeline, then I was born in 1999 in the Netherlands. I have a Swedish mom and a Dutch dad. They met on an Erasmus exchange in Sweden, and I think my dad was warned, like, "Oh, you'll find a girl when you go to Sweden. Like, you'll be back married or something like that." And that's kind of what happened. So I was born in the Netherlands, and then a year later, my sister was born, and we moved to South Africa. Uh, my father worked as a consultant, and my mom as a documentary filmer. And they never thought that kids would stop them from traveling. So we just went as a family. And so the first language that I started speaking was English, even though like my father would speak Dutch with us and my mom would speak Swedish with us. What we heard in like kindergarten, and they spoke English to each other. So that became the first language that I spoke with my sister. And I think we lived there for a couple of months, and then we went to the US, to Boston, and we lived there for a couple of years, and then back to the Netherlands. And my younger brother was born. So even though we moved around a lot, we're all born in the same hospital.
Oh, really? That's funny.
Yeah, and then we lived in the Netherlands until I was 9 or 10, and uh, my parents wanted us to be able to like fully learn Swedish, and I think they also wanted to try something new. And so we moved to Sweden, not to a place where we had any relatives or no real connection. I know that my parents Googled the place. We moved there because my mom got a job there that she found interesting. And they Googled the place. It's called Ulricehamn. And there was like this picture of mountains and snow, and it looked like Swedish Alps. And they were like, whoa, whoa. And then we arrived and we realized that picture was taken in the Himalaya when they were there, the Ulricehamn Climbing Association. It was not the Swedish Alps.
But your mother is from Sweden, so she must have known. There are no Alps in Sweden.
No, there are no Alps. I don't know if my dad was out with his imagination. I don't know what was up there, but we realized quite quickly it was not big mountains. There's a small skiing slope though.
Oh, okay.
And it's a small town, and I remember moving there and being able to bicycle to school for the first time by myself, because there was too much traffic to do it in the Netherlands. Like, I think we were too young at that point, at 9 or 10. And also, I know my parents worried less about safety and stuff like that. You know, having lived in South Africa and the US, they were a bit more worried about what could happen there. And as it was, like, we started in a very small school, and my siblings and I got extra classes in Swedish. And then slowly we started speaking. So I first spoke English with my siblings, and then after a couple of years in the Netherlands, we started speaking Dutch to each other. And then after a couple of years in Sweden, we started speaking Swedish to each other. So I think that's quite uncommon. I think usually you stick with like the first language or mother tongue. I don't know, but we actually switched. So now I speak Swedish with my siblings.
Yeah, I think it's uncommon to switch with your family.
Yeah.
Sort of in the home, in family home, you usually maybe stick with one language. I don't know, actually. Good question.
But I still speak Dutch with my dad, and then Swedish with my mom, and then they speak English to each other. So like when we have dinner, or like in a sentence, we can mix 3 languages in one sentence, and it was not something that I thought about. But then when like I had friends over, they would be like, what language are you speaking now? Is this some kind of made-up language? Like, they could understand some things, but not everything. And then we were there for a couple of years. And in high school, I wanted an adventure. I wanted to go to study abroad for a year, and I wanted to go as far away as possible. I think that was my main goal. So I went on exchange for 1 year in Brazil when I was 16, and learned Portuguese, as I lived in a very small town where nobody knew English. So it was pure survival, trying to learn Portuguese. But also it was hard in the beginning, but it was worth it in the end, to really learn the language. And then I came back to Sweden, finished high school, moved within Sweden. And then I was in Ireland for a while at university.
Why did you go to Ireland?
Well, I applied to go to Amsterdam for an exchange, because I wanted to practice my Dutch a bit more. And then everyone was talking about, well, what is your second choice? Like, everyone has a second or third choice. Like, some people even have 5th choices. And I was like, oh, maybe I should do that just to be sure. And then I just ticked the box in for Dublin.
Right.
So I didn't really think a lot about it. And then I got an email from the exchange counselor thing. And she was like, oh, congratulations. You are going to Istanbul. And I was like, wait, where did that come from? Like, thank you so much. But I didn't apply to go to Istanbul. And then
that's the only box I didn't tick.
Yes, that's the only box I didn't tick. Like, and then I answered, and she was like, oh, sorry, I sent you the wrong email. You're going to Dublin. And I was like, okay, thank you so much. So does that mean that I couldn't get my first choice? And then apparently they had lost the papers for my Amsterdam application, so they never even came through.
Oh.
So that was not even an option. And I was like,
Okay.
okay, so now I have the possibility to go to Dublin. Why not? Let's do it. So I was there for half a year or something like that. And that was also a lot of fun. It's a really great place. People are so kind, and there were also a lot of other exchange students, and I got to practice some French. There were a lot of French exchange students. So yeah, that would be my timeline.
Right, you were in Ireland and you can practice your French. Okay, good.
Yes.
Yes. I'm making a list of languages. So.
Yes. So,
okay. Okay. So then and then what? Then where did you go then?
I finished last after Ireland. I came back and I had my last year in university, my bachelor's degree in global studies, focusing on international relations. And I had to do I could do an internship as part of my last year. And I applied everywhere, but it was during the pandemic. So right when I came back from Dublin, that's when the pandemic started. So we had online classes and nobody was accepting interns. And it was really hard. And I sent out a bunch of applications. And then I got like the tip of that I should apply for an internship at AI Sweden, which is the National Center for Artificial Intelligence. And I was like, I'm sorry, but I know absolutely nothing about AI. I know nothing about technology. I'm purely social science background. And then I started Googling a bit, and I realized how AI was intertwined with like international politics and power dimensions, especially between the US and China, and how this technology could be politicized. And I started thinking, yeah.
Yeah, no.
Wait, hang
on. Yeah, hang on. Before we go there, I just want to go back a little bit.
Yes.
Because social sciences. I'm interested in if we start go a little bit back to the beginning. So because where did you started being interested in social sciences? That you thought, yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing. That's the thing for me.
Good question. Yeah, and I think it's always been quite prominent. In my family, we've talked a lot about.
Okay, let's start there. Let's start there. What is social sciences?
Social sciences.
What is it? What do you study when you study
social sciences?
Yeah.
Well, history, geography. We studied a bit of economy as well, like national economy, politics, ideology. And then in university, it was more focusing on different concepts of justice, sustainability, globalization, power dynamics.
Okay. So if I would say, because if I hear you describe it in that way, and then listen to the fact that you've been traveling all around and experiencing all these different cultures, systems, countries, this is basically a continuation of that kind of lens, if you will, that way of looking at the world and experiencing different things, because you are obviously, because you have experienced all these different systems and cultures. That's it. I mean, then it makes, is that sort of where do you feel that kind of sparked that interest or that it's...
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think it sparked a curiosity of understanding different types of people and thoughts and political ideas. And it's it's funny that you ask, and I'm trying to think like how it started, but I think it's just always been there, and it could be because of the traveling and moving around. But I think at every place I've been trying to think who I am in this context, but then also trying to understand as much as possible what this new context around me means. So trying to adapt at the same time,
Yeah.
understanding that I don't change that, like that I just stay put in what I still think and feel, and try to adapt that to what's
Yeah.
around me.
So
It
what
was definitely
if you would describe or kind of maybe this is I mean a bit too vague, but I'm curious whether you could kind of pinpoint what the sort of the effect, not so much a benefit, could, I mean, whether it's positive or negative that's not the point, but what the effect of being of growing up the way you did, and obviously it's difficult because that's the way you grew up, and you can't compare it to not growing up that way. So I suppose you would have stayed in the Netherlands and never moved and never went anywhere, and that's it, compared to how you grew up now. So is there? Do you have a sense of what it brought you? How it affected you as a person?
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. I thought about it quite a bit. I talked to my siblings about it as well, and I think there is a sense of like rootlessness, uh, and I mean, like when people ask what is home, if I usually think that's where like my family is. It's not really a place, and we didn't really see the rest of the family that much, like grandparents and stuff like that. And I'm always more prepared to leave than to stay, uh, which is I think both positive and negative. But it goes all the way to like, should I really buy this carpet for my apartment because I don't know how long I will be staying there, and then I have to get rid of the carpet.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I take
So
it with me?
yeah, right, exactly. Well, this piece of furniture, is it worth it? Because I have to figure out what to do with it when I leave, even though I don't really have a plan right
Really?
now
Is that,
where I'm going.
that's how you kind of assess things, that goes through your mind when you buy furniture? You go like,
Yeah,
I might not. Yeah, no, I need to leave.
definitely. Yeah.
So, so that's really interesting kind of effect that it has on quite, very detailed things in your life.
Mm, mm,
So it's small decisions basically. Why,
yeah,
like, that carpet is kind of like, that's a, like, really
yeah.
interesting. How and otherwise, because that might not, I don't know if that's a negative thing, but I mean, not growing up with like grandmothers, grandparents, sort of, that might be negative. But what, I mean, the restlessness, or is it restlessness? Is it more like,
100%.
yeah, restless?
Or at least
Yeah,
that's what I feel sometimes. And I think that's also why, like the exchange to Brazil and Ireland, people are like, oh, why did you go there? And I was like, well, I just wanted to go somewhere, and then I knew I'd
yeah,
make the best of the situation.
yeah, right,
Um,
yeah.
so
Ah.
it's
So how
easy.
how did you then? So then, okay. So social sciences, that kind of seems to fit really
Mm,
with the way you kind of you see things, or
mm,
with the way you were brought up, and all that, and um, and I think your ability, if I mean, the way you described, like, you were invited to kind of, be part of this. What was the name? AI Sweden, Sweden AI,
yeah, AI Sweden.
AI Sweden. That you could then say, well, I don't know anything about it, but I'll do it anyway. I
Yeah,
think, is that also, do you feel that because of the ability to adapt, because you're so used to adapt to, different contexts, that helped you kind of
I
just
think
go
so.
jump into it?
Yeah, yeah, and also I think I also like doing that. Really like jumping into something completely unknown. It's not only that I'm used to it, but it's also something I enjoy. Kind of being like, taking it all in, what's happening around me, who are the people around me? What are they doing? Uh, I think that I feel as my best self in those situations where I can ask a bunch of questions and really see and learn completely new things and be challenged with what, like, my own perception of the world and values. And like I had the same feel when I started at AI Sweden, with all like these tech people around me and everything like that. It was the same feeling when moving to Brazil and I didn't know the language. And like my host father told me, oh, you have to do the dishes because you're a woman. And I was like, I've been brought up in a very like liberal household, a feminist household. And I was standing there, I was like, wait, what? I do the dishes because I'm a woman. And then first I was super, super upset and super angry. And after a while, I realized that, like, when he said that, he didn't mean it in a way that you are less valued than me. I'm better than you in any way. But it was more that, like, these are the tasks that women usually do, and these are the tasks that men usually do, and we respect what the women do, and we respect what the men do. It was not a way to like be mean to me in any way. But in the beginning, I was super angry because I just didn't understand why he would say and why other people are like had those kind of opinions. And then I realized it was because they had lived that way for a long time. They didn't like they valued the different genders and what their like norm tasks were, and because they never talked about anything else. You
But
didn't think about another option.
That takes a lot of empathy to
Well,
be
yeah.
able to go like, but it's a good point really that it actually is sort of, it can really, because you come from a totally different culture and background, and it can really offend you.
Yeah.
And this is a good example. But there are other ways that you could be offended. That when you when you really start understanding where other people come from, you might go like, huh. It doesn't make it right though. I still think there's something there to do. But at the same time, and then I hear myself say it, and I'm thinking, who am I? Well, to say, our way of thinking is the right way of thinking. Maybe women should do the dishes. Wait a minute. That's actually, there's an option. No,
Yeah.
but it's interesting. I mean, it's a weird thing to say because I so much believe in kind of the way, that is obviously we're all equal and all that stuff. Of course. Now I'm saying, of course, but at the same time, it is sort of a way of thinking that we feel is the better way of thinking.
Yeah.
And everyone else who thinks differently is wrong. And I feel so strong, and like you're probably like, what's going on? This is terrible. What are you weird? How backwards is this?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's kind of funny. It's because that's all also, I think, and I think from dishes to your international politics, it might be a small step right there, because it is a bit about how we don't, and if you don't understand each other and you are not willing to understand each other, if you're not willing to say, okay, I really think this is a bad kind of way of living or acting or thinking, but what's the story behind it? Where does it come from? I think that it leads to at least an understanding of why people think in a certain way or act in a certain way. And without that understanding, you cannot have a conversation. You'll never be able to change.
Yeah.
If you just start with, that's bad, you should think the way I think, then it will never be solved. So I think empathy, and I think that's why it's a good example of the dishes. Just like, what is going on?
Yeah, but it's definitely a journey. It's not like something that I, after 15 minutes, thought, oh, okay,
No.
maybe that's why.
How
But
long
it
did it
was,
take? How long did that take?
I think months. I was very, very angry. I didn't even understand during that year that I had like shifted slowly. I was shifting my mindset to being more understandable.
I think it was afterwards, like when I talked about my year there, I started realizing that, I was so angry and I didn't understand in the beginning. And then in the end, I feel like I got to know the people more than I think before I was quite judging. And I, I think I was definitely maybe, I don't want to call myself an angry feminist, but I did not have the same understanding before I went to Brazil. Definitely not. I think if the stuff I heard people say there and their thoughts, like if that would have happened when I still lived in Sweden, I would never have talked to the person again. But here in Brazil, I first of all didn't really have a choice because the city was so small and because I didn't speak the language, so I couldn't express the way I was thinking or feeling.
Right.
So then I just had to listen and try to understand.
Yeah. So what? Sorry, what did you say?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
then I don't have a poker face, so they
what?
probably
Yeah.
what I was thinking, but I couldn't argument against it.
Yeah.
And otherwise, I always think it's super important to be able to say, oh, I don't agree with this because la la la. Like I think it's very healthy to not start a conflict, but to be able to talk about why you disagree. And this was a situation where I didn't have that ability. I couldn't tell them what I was thinking. So then I just had to sit down and reflect. And I guess that's when the process started of becoming more understanding. Then it wasn't like I still tried to show my thoughts and feelings and arguments. And I remember I was going to have a speech at one of the local schools. That's when I learned better Portuguese. So I was able to speak in Portuguese. And I said that I wanted to talk about feminism. And the school said, absolutely not.
Oh, really?
That's way too political. And I was like, okay, well, then I'll speak about Sweden. And I did speak about Sweden, and I spoke about the school system. And then I also spoke about that the Swedish government defines itself as feminist. And then I had to explain what that means and in what way. So I don't know how many people like that, but I got around it. And it was not like, it was not 45 minutes about feminism, but it was more of like, here we have a concept and this is how it's applied in Swedish politics and this is how it's applied in Swedish society. And I kind of I brought that with me. I started a student association at my high school when I came back to Sweden with two of my friends called sorores, so sisterhood in Latin, to talk more about like women's issues and to also it was during the time when a lot of refugees were coming to Europe. So we had a lot of kids coming to like our high school to learn Swedish. So they were not part of like the high school classes, but they were in the same building. But we never, like there were no interactions with them. So we started planning activities for all like students to meet for a more like inclusive feeling. And we decided very early on that we were not able to use the word feminist or feminism when we spoke about the association, because it would also many people interpret it in different ways. So we just spoke of it as equality and inclusion, to kind of simplify it, I guess, and de-weaponize a bit. So also be able to like try and understand like how would people perceive this. And I don't think everyone was ready to have a feminist association. But now, after we graduated, other students took over like the club or the association. So after several years, it's still there. And now they call themselves a feminist association. So it's fun how like we started and then slowly, I guess people were ready, or maybe they were like the ones that are running it now are braver, or I don't really know. But it's very interesting to see how slowly that shifted. To be able to like, it felt okay to call it that.
So if you so because there's another thread before we because I think this feminism and somewhere I in my mind it also links a little bit to sort of when you go into AI Sweden, because that's a AI, I don't know why, but because it has to do with technology, it probably is a more male kind of environment. So
100%, yeah.
Right. So we'll get back to feminism probably there as well. And I like that because it's like you do the dishes, right? But then in the techie world language, what would be the dishes there? I'll get to that in a moment, because there's another kind of thread in which we haven't really touched on except for right in the beginning. That's music. So where did music come from? That's a song, isn't
it? I think definitely from my mom. She sang also. She was also in the band when she was younger, and she would always sing to us before bedtime. And we listened to a lot of music at home as well. Like there was always music playing. And she's told me that when I was younger and she asked like what story I wanted her to read, apparently I asked to watch 3 music videos instead of hearing a story. So then I got to watch my 3 music videos, and then I went to bed. And usually I was obsessed with country when I was younger. That's also from my mom. So I would listen to like the Chicks and Shania Twain, and yeah, it's definitely like a country, a female artist. So it kind of all started there, and then I taught myself how to play the guitar by watching YouTube videos, and the same with ukulele. I play it very badly, but I can like sing along with it. It's more for fun. And then when I was in Brazil, because like I didn't know the language, but music you could always do together. And I sang a lot there as well. And I remember like my first host family was so proud of me the first time I sang a song in Portuguese. And it was so sweet. It was such a nice moment. And that was also so like, it's a small thing to do, but it was so appreciated, because then they understood that I was really trying to learn the language, and it was something that I learned for them to show my appreciation. And then when I came back to Sweden after Brazil, it was way more difficult to come back than to leave. I had a really hard time when I was back in Sweden, and I didn't know what was home. I didn't know where I wanted to be. I didn't want to be in Sweden, and I didn't know how to go back to Brazil either. It was a restlessness, and it was difficult to understand where I felt at home. And then apparently my mom emailed the music teacher at the high school saying like, hey, my daughter just started, she needs a little bit of a boost. Could she join the music class? And then the music teacher came up to me at school one day, and she was like, oh, I heard from your mom that you like music. Like, would you like to come along to one of the classes at some point? And then I'd never studied music, and I never had like singing lessons really or stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, why not? And I started, and it was like this small class of kids that just loved music. And I felt so welcomed, and it was so much fun. And after a while, I started feeling at home. So that music class really helped, and my music teacher, Anna.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That somehow how music kind of helped you feel at home.
Yeah.
Huh. And then basically you started playing in a band.
Yeah. And then these guys found me.
Yeah, exactly.
And we started playing, and then I think I had sang with them a couple of times, maybe for like a year or something like that. And then they said, well, we want to, or 2 years maybe. And then they said, well, we're thinking of doing a project, a girl power project. So, okay, what does that mean? So they wanted to make an album. So I recorded 4 songs with them. And then they recorded 4 songs with my friend Ylva. And then we recorded 4 songs, Ylva and I singing together.
What's the name of the band?
The Gay Strators. It's a long story, but gay as in happy and straters as in a type of guitar. And we practice in a small house that we call Little Red. It's a little red house on like the Swedish countryside.
Yes.
So then we made this album together with 12 songs during the course of 3 years. So I recorded my songs, and I think it was in 2020, and then Ylva her songs in 2021, and then we recorded, or something like that, and then Ylva and I recorded our songs together in December this year, and we released it in, oh my gosh, was it March? I don't know, but now we have an album out.
This year?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yep.
See, it is an interview with a...
No, I have a real difficulty saying that because I really love making music, but it feels so awkward saying to people, hey, like you can stream my songs if you want to. It's such a personal thing, and I sometimes I even get worried when I see that people are actually streaming the songs. But then I try to think of I think Ylva is amazing, and I think the rest of the band is also amazing, and it was so.
But you're not. Everyone else is great. But...
It's easier to think of it's good to promote them than myself when it comes to music. If I'm gonna be honest.
I'm fascinated by this. I understand it, by the way, because it is very vulnerable. It is very personal, and you can't, it's not anything. You can't hide. This is just you, but I'm still a little bit fascinated by it because somehow, if you listen to your life story so far, which is all about adapting and being able to survive in different contexts and finding your place, etc., and having all these different kind of people around you all the time. It is in a way it's kind of odd that when you talk about music, you're like, oh, it's just it's just for fun, and it's and you go on stage and you have a blackout, and you go you're so nervous, and it's I'm not a psychologist, obviously, but if I were, I would think, is music not the thing you love the most? Because isn't that the one thing that you care the most about? So almost because it's so. You're so, that's such a vulnerable thing that you hold so close to yourself, to your own heart. And so that's where you don't want to be hurt. Everything else fine. And we'll talk about AI in a moment, and we can talk about language and social sciences. But music, you're like, no, don't go there. That's
definitely an inner conflict. It's such a big part of me, and it's really something I love. But it's absolutely the most difficult thing to promote.
Of course, of course, because that's real.
Exactly.
I say so because I have the same thing. So I've played music since I was in a band since I was 12 or 11 or something. I played in a band all my life. Music has always been sort of a big part of me. Also painting and all kinds of I always still say when I grow up later I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to be something like that, and but it's more difficult because it's very vulnerable, but you can have both. It doesn't have to you don't have to make the choice. I don't think so. I think you can have you can have multiple layers, which is great. But it's interesting. I'm just the way you talk about it is it's funny. When it's the music is you sound different when you talk about music.
I have to step up a bit there then and feel more confident about it.
No, 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 no. You don't have to. No, no, not at all. No, no. I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think no. It is vulnerable, and it should be
Yeah.
vulnerable, and
Yeah.
it's what it is. It's the real thing. And of
Mhm.
course, you should be. Otherwise, what if you don't question yourself, if you're not insecure, you become what, arrogant or what?
Yeah. Yeah.
You stop growing.
Yeah.
Insecurity is an engine.
Yeah.
Insecurity is energy, and it's a force to keep learning and changing. And vulnerability is beautiful. It means that it's open and other
Mhm.
people can connect to it.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's really not. It becomes, yeah. Anyway, it becomes such
Yeah,
a.
I agree. Hmm.
So, so anyway, yeah, okay. I want to go to because this is really interesting, and I am going to listen to it, and so we might play some on the podcast,
Oh my goodness.
just to tease
Okay.
you, just to tease you.
Yeah.
I'll
That
play
would be
some.
the most nervous part of listening to it then.
Yeah, it's like, all
Yeah.
right,
It
all
would
right.
be fun to see which song you choose.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, okay. Well, I'll do that. And so my I want to go a little bit to the present, or
Hmm.
to the AI Sweden, because you started talking about it a little bit. You came into you had to. It's like you had to learn Portuguese, but then you need to learn the language of the techies.
Yeah.
So as you described, you were asked to join AI Sweden, but you were like, I don't know anything about artificial intelligence
Hmm.
and AI and the whole thing. And so can you start there? What your first day?
Yeah.
Hello.
I started as an intern, as I was looking for an internship.
Hmm.
Uh, and I I don't think like it was through another like contact. So they hadn't like posted anything about interns. And I'm quite sure that I was their very first intern. um, because the AI Sweden, it started in 2019, so it's quite new.
Hmm.
Uh, and so I approached them through this contact saying like, hey, I'm looking for an internship. I could write a white paper about the different AI strategies comparing the US, the EU, and China. Um, and they were like, yeah, sure, that sounds great. So I started my internship there, which was writing this report about something that I knew nothing about. So I found this online course, which apparently AI Sweden was part of, but I didn't know at that point. But yeah, Elements of AI, which was like this very basic course in what AI is and how you define it, and also how you're not able to define it. There's not really a universal understanding of what it is or officially. Um, so I try to study a bit and I talked to a lot of people. I asked so many questions, and I know at some moments I was like, oh, people might think I'm stupid for asking all these questions, but I was like, how else am I supposed to understand what's happening here? Well, like then I'd risk people thinking that I'm stupid and to learn these new things.
Hmm.
And then I never felt that anyone thought that I was stupid. But um, so then I wrote the paper and I really enjoyed being there, the people working there. And I thought this like politicalization of technology and like how there are different AI strategies and how it affects the power dynamics between China and US. I thought it was so interesting, and it was something completely new to me. It was not part of my bachelor at all. It was never mentioned. I think we talked about how the internet affected politics at some point,
Hmm.
but nothing more than that. Um, and I really wanted to stay after my internship, but I was shy and scared because I didn't have the background that the rest of the people had there, and I didn't really know what I could contribute with, except that I was curious and I was willing to learn. Um, but then I said that I could help them with like identifying different projects that they do and try to reach out to partners to see what kind of help they need and try to connect different partners to each other. Uh, And I was supposed to go to the boss and ask him this, if I could get a position after my internship. But I was so worried about that because I'd never had, like, I'd worked in cafes before like that, but never really. It was my first maybe job opportunity after university. And I was just too scared to ask the boss. And then at some point he walked in, and then one of my colleagues said, "Hey, Ingrid wants to talk to you." And I was like, "No, wait. Oh, no. So I was kind of like forced into the corner. And then I just said, "Well, this is it. I'm finishing my internship. I really liked it here. I think people enjoyed having me around as well. And I would like to do this." I was like, okay, yeah, interesting. I'll get back to you. And then I got the job. So I became part of the communications team. And so I was working in AI Sweden with communication. I'd never studied communication either. I had no prior experience of it. So I was sitting with now two different things, communication and tech. And then it was just time for me to absorb what was happening around, ask people, and see what it all meant, really. Also adapting and trying to figure out what the needs are, and like what is important to think about when you communicate this, and how do we explain this very advanced technology that I can't wrap my head around, but who do I talk to be able to understand this? Who do I know is good at explaining complicated things? And on what level do we decide to explain this, and who is our target group? And I learned a lot. Like my first year, I worked there for almost 1.5 years now. My first year there, I graduated university. I moved in to my own apartment. I lived by myself for the first time, because I always lived in dormitories or with friends before. And I got a car, and I was working in AI with communication. So I think when you look at Ingrid 21, and then I became 22 during my time there, and now 23, it's like a lot of things that happened. And I've learned a lot through the process. And then when I started Accept Communication, I was also invited to be part of a project called Future of Democracy, where we talk about how Sweden can use digitalization and AI in a democratically sustainable way. And that really, it went well with what I had studied and what I thought was interesting from university and what I was doing now. So that was really my perfect project. So when my boss told me about that, he was like, "I think you're perfect for this." And then he started talking about it. I was like, "Yeah, I think so too."
Yeah, because this is where international politics, social science, and AI started blending, right?
Yeah.
This is where the impacts or the potential impact of AI. So, which is, yes, exactly. So it's interesting that then these things come together.
Yeah.
How I was curious about something you said. You said there's no universal understanding of what AI is.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of like, I was like, what? What do you mean? I never thought about that. Whether there is any understanding of it. But so I was like, is there no, I would have guessed there's like, there would be sort of a, like a simple understanding of it. Like everybody agrees on this is AI, but it's not. So what exactly does that mean?
Well, if you really dig into it, it becomes almost a philosophical question. Artificial intelligence, what is artificial and what is intelligence? You can think about that from many different perspectives, but then there are different texts that you've used. So you have, for example, the Turing test, and if you, for example, chat with a chatbot, and you think it's a human person you're writing with, then it's like successful, or then it could be AI because you don't think it's a machine.
So it becomes intelligent by the fact that a human being considers it
Intelligence.
Intelligence, not
Yeah.
it's not. Okay, yeah, I see the philosophical kind
Mm.
of debate emerging there. Where you're like, that's not intelligence,
And
is
it
it?
becomes intelligent as it learns new things, it trains itself, it's
Yeah,
automated, and
yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah,
also that it learns.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
Yeah, this is where I thought it would be.
mm,
It's sort of where it become, yeah, when it trains itself,
yeah,
so it becomes artificial intelligence, and then you can argue what is artificial, of course, but
yeah,
still, I mean, which is interesting, but it's
mm,
at the core, it kind of it's AI teaching AI, it's
yeah,
machines teaching machines,
mm,
and then becoming smarter, and so which is I think where you go, it's sort of at least you're moving to that kind of murky space of how do we then control that?
mm,
Do we actually control that?
mm.
Is it something that is it a and so I'm quoting someone who was also on my podcast, Christine Anderson,
Mm.
who was
My mentor.
yes, yeah,
Mm,
you know her well. Christina, who said, you have to make a friend, not an enemy.
mm.
And so, yeah, how do we do that? And that is that sort of what you are now focusing on that space of making a friend, another enemy.
But yeah, you could say that in some way, but it's both like putting the question on the agenda, like what does AI and digitalization mean for Sweden? How can we use it in healthcare? How can we use it in education? What kind of regulation do we need so that not all the big tech companies take over the monopoly of these type of technologies and it can harm people? But how
Mm-hmm.
do we also use it in a way that will increase the welfare of citizens?
Mm-hmm.
How can we make hospital visits more efficient? How can we get a diagnosis quickly? Uh, and what do we need to be able to do that? Right now, I know like one of the things, this Future of Democracy, we have a conference every year where we gather 100 leaders from different sectors. So we have media there, public sector, industry, civil society, and with politicians to talk about these type of questions. And one of the things in Sweden, which makes it difficult, or one of the problems we face, is that like GDPR and regulation of data is very strict. So, for example, the police agency can't share all their data with social services. And then a police arrives at a house, the kids might be in distress, but they don't know what social services know. So they decide to leave the kids at the house. And yes, it's super important that we protect our integrity and that our data is kept in a safe place. But I think right now in Sweden, as a citizen, it's very difficult to know what type of data the state has on you. And we're very, very afraid of rethinking. Like, what if we decide to share data between social services and the police?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's such a sensitive topic. It's tax money, but also people's personal data that is affected by making this change. It's way more difficult for public sector to be innovative and to test things if you compare it to the industry, which yeah, obviously. So those are things that we have discussed. That regulation is needed, but there also has to be a space and opportunity to be able to test new things. And right now in Sweden, it's also difficult to share what do you call it, hospital journals, hospital data
Mm-hmm.
um, between regions, sometimes even within a region.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that also slows down healthcare and makes that you can't provide the person with the quickest and best healthcare when they arrive. So I think there are definitely things that we have to rethink about how much. I think we should value integrity, absolutely, but to what extent?
So if I think about it, AI and which is part of, I think, a new world,
Mm-hmm.
a very new way of, I think, we can either build societies or destroy societies, or it's going to have a big impact. It already has, and it's going to. I mean, it's going to be slow in the sense that we might not even notice most of it, because it's kind of seeping into all our systems and our
Mm-hmm.
in our households, and slowly it's there, and that data is going to be there. And whether these are things like, right, so they get connected between maybe the different silos that might still be there in government, or like within healthcare and industry, and because I know a lot of businesses would love to have healthcare data as well, because
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
a lot of businesses are in healthcare, because and they want all your data. It's just such a scary thing in a way,
Mm-hmm.
but it is also potentially the way we can solve like really big problems. But then it takes, again, we go back to Christina Andersen's idea of not making enemy. We have to be better people, she
Mm.
always said. We in order to make better AI, we have to be better people, which to
Mm.
me is like, oh, I'm a naive person, which means
Mhm.
by choice, because I rather have a positive outlook instead of being cynical and saying it
Yeah.
doesn't work. But to be honest, there somehow in my mind I go like, yeah, yeah. Have you seen the news lately?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a bigger shift.
That's a huge thing, right? So,
Yeah.
but you are a pioneer in that sense, and you're in that new. It's a new world
Mhm.
that you're kind of entering, and it is going to be, and you are at the frontier of that, because we don't, it's just started. This is
Yeah.
just started, right? This is going to be something like we can't even imagine what it's
Yeah.
going to
I
do.
definitely think so, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you feel like that? Yeah. Do you feel like you're pioneering?
But I've never thought of myself as a pioneer. um, but um, I think there are. I think there are like big changes ahead. I think that education as I know it when I went to school will change. I think we will have more personalized education, and um, like you start with doing some tests to see what levels you are and what is a good way for you to learn, and then the rest of your school years are designed that way. Um, and I think also what you decide to study obviously will also. I do not think all social science studies will disappear or will not be needed. I think definitely there needs to be a combination of both.
Mm-hmm.
We have to understand people, we have to understand machines, and then also the data. Most of the data that we use AI for is based on earlier human decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly. Yeah.
if AI is biased, it's because we are.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No. Exactly. Right. Yeah.
So it's not like the machine in itself it's evil. It depends on what information we give it.
Exactly.
uh, and
So your challenge is not technology. Your challenge is people.
Yeah, maybe
Okay.
that could be
Yeah.
one way of putting it. And also I think there's a lack of understanding what the technology actually means, which
Hmm.
makes it a very scary thing, and it make like politicians don't really want to talk about it because they might not really understand what it would actually mean. And that there is this sci-fi perspective of a killer robot that becomes self-aware and then kills everything on the planet. Uh,
Yeah.
and
Well, that would solve a lot of problems.
right, so like if we would save the climate, well, yeah, then
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of. I guess
yeah,
so. Then there's just this
and
one
then,
robot left,
yes, exactly,
a lonely robot.
yeah.
Like, what did I do?
and there's only one way to turn it off, but nobody. Yeah, we have a whole script for a movie ready.
Right there, yeah.
So I
Okay.
think it's that as well, that we have to talk about it in terms of how does it affect society.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the goals with Future Democracy. It's not like everyone that comes there are technology experts, but they do have a curiosity, an interest, and an understanding that things will change, and how do we use this change in the most sufficient and democratic way.
Right. Cool. I think it is a really exciting sort of exciting new world. Again, I like to be naive, and I think when good people start kind of thinking about this and working with this and being part of the conversation, not only, I mean, it will always be complicated. There will be bad people, but there are also good people. So to keep that balance, and I think that would be so important, and to have. I think people like you being part of that conversation. I think that's crucial. We need feminist musicians. to be part of the tech world, and restless people. That's the one. So I want to kind of know what you think about what's next for you, but I also want to know about your restlessness, because I'm like,
Yeah.
how's that going? Where you still? How's your furniture looking now? I mean, you're still going like, where shall I go next?
Yeah.
Are there boxes to tick with countries? Can I go? AI Sweden, it must be an international.
Yeah, but yeah, we have one office in Canada, so I'm still waiting for my bosses to send me.
Really?
No, but now I've lived in Gothenburg in Sweden for 4 years, and it's definitely starting to get like a little bit itchy of like, where do I want to go? I've been thinking a lot about buying a houseboat. Maybe it's
Ah.
something with my Dutch roots, but that would definitely be a dream. But then my problem is that I have to decide where I want to have this boat. I have to decide a place.
Hmm.
And I think, earlier, either I moved with my family, or it was just like I'd go anywhere. And now I'm trying to figure out, okay, if I decide myself, like I want to go somewhere, but where do I really want to go? I don't know. If someone would ask me, hey, here's you want to study this over here? Yeah, why not? But I haven't really. I'm trying to test a new thing by staying. And now, yeah, I bought furniture for the first time in my life. I bought it all secondhand, so it wouldn't be too expensive. So I could easily either try to sell it again, or then I wouldn't make too much of a loss if I have to donate it. So now I have furniture, my own furniture, for the first time in my life. And I really love Gothenburg, and I really like what I'm doing now. So I'm gonna try to stay put for a little while longer, see how that feels. And then I'm always ready for the next adventure. What that is, I don't really know yet. I never thought, like 2 years ago, I never thought I would work within tech or communication for that matter either. So I'm just trying to figure out what I like to do and what the opportunities could be. And I think a lot about how you find your dream job. Like, how are you supposed to know what you're doing? And I've asked other colleagues, like one of my colleagues said that he has his dream job now. And I asked him, how did you know before what your dream job would be? And he just said that he said yes to everything that sounded fun. And then he started with this, and he realized this was his dream. So I think I'm going to go with that approach, doing things that I think is fun. And then one day, maybe I sit there and I was like, wait, this was my dream. I didn't know, but now I know.
Exactly. Yeah. Because you didn't know what you're doing now, that it even existed. Actually, when you were a kid, it didn't exist. It didn't exist a couple of years ago. I mean,
No.
right? So whatever you're going to do, it might not exist now.
True.
It probably
Also.
doesn't. Yeah. Well, yeah. So you can't. How? Yeah. Well, it's a strong possibility, especially when you now are creating sort of a resume and experience in AI and in tech and with combination of social science. That's a very new thing, so I don't think whatever you're going to be doing exists except maybe being a singer in a band.
Yeah, right.
That's a job right there.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, I really want to thank you for this conversation. It was really, really nice and insightful. And so thank you very much for spending time.
Yeah, it was so nice talking to you.